living knowledge of God, ocean deep, ocean wide. On that day, Jesse's root will be raised high, posted as a rallying banner for the peoples. The nations will all come to him. His headquarters will be glorious. Also on that day, the Master, for the second time, will reach out to bring back what's left of his scattered people. He'll bring them back from Assyria, Egypt, Pathros, Ethiopia, Elam, Shinar, Hamath, and the ocean islands. And he'll raise that rallying banner high, visible to all nations, gather in all the scattered exiles of Israel, pull in all the dispersed refugees of Judah from the four winds and the seven seas. The jealousy of Ephraim will dissolve. The hostility of Judah will vanish. Ephraim no longer the jealous rival of Judah. Judah no longer the hostile rival of Ephraim. Blood brothers united, they'll pounce on the Philistines in the west, join forces to plunder the people in the east. They'll attack Edom and Moab. The Ammonites will fall into line. God will once again dry up Egypt's Red Sea, making for an easy crossing. He'll send a blistering wind down on the great river Euphrates, reduce it to 7 mere trickles. None even need get their feet wet. In the end, there'll be a highway all the way from Assyria, easy traveling for what's left of God's people. A highway just like the one Israel had when he marched up out of Egypt. Chapter 12. My strength and song. And you will say in that day, I thank you, God. You were angry, but your anger wasn't forever. You withdrew your anger and moved in and comforted me. Yes, indeed, God is my salvation. I trust. I won't be afraid. God, yes, God is my strength and song. Best of all, my salvation. Joyfully, you'll pull up buckets of water from the wells of salvation. And as you do it, you'll say, give thanks to God. Call out his name. Ask him anything. Shout to the nations. Tell them what he's done. Spread the news of his great reputation. Sing praise songs to God. He's done it all. Let the whole earth know what he's done. Raise the roof. Sing your hearts out, O Zion. The greatest lives among you, the Holy of Israel. Chapter 13. Babylon is doomed. The message on Babylon. Isaiah, son of Amos, saw it. Run up a flag on an open hill. Yell aloud. Get their attention. Wave them into formation. Direct them to the nerve center of power. I've taken charge of my special forces, called up my crack troops. They're bursting with pride and passion to carry out my angry judgment. Thunder rolls off the mountains like a mob huge and noisy. Thunder of kingdoms in an uproar, nations assembling for war. God of the angel armies is calling his army into battle formation. They come from far-off countries. They pour in across the horizon. It's God on the move with the weapons of his wrath, ready to destroy the whole country. Wail. God's day of judgment is near. An avalanche crashing down from the strong God. Everyone paralyzed in the panic, hysterical and unstrung, doubled up in pain, like a woman giving birth to a baby. Horrified, everyone they see is like a face out of a nightmare. Watch now, God's judgment day comes. Cruel it is, a day of wrath and anger, a day to waste the earth and clean out all the sinners. The stars in the sky, the great parade of constellations, will be nothing but black holes. The sun will come up as a black disk, and the moon a blank nothing. I'll put a full stop to the evil on earth, terminate the dark acts of the wicked. I'll gag all braggarts and boasters, not a peep anymore from them, and trip strutting tyrants, leave them flat on their faces. Proud humanity will disappear from the earth. I'll make mortals rarer than hen's teeth. And yes, I'll even make the sky shake and the earth quake to its roots, under the wrath of God of the angel armies, the judgment day of his raging anger. Like a hunted white-tailed deer, like lost sheep with no shepherd, people will huddle with a few of their own kind, run off to some makeshift shelter. But tough luck to stragglers. They'll be killed on the spot. Throats cut, bellies ripped open, babies smashed on the rocks, while mothers and fathers watch. Houses looted, wives raped. And now watch this. Against Babylon, I'm inciting the Medes. A ruthless bunch indifferent to bribes, the kind of brutality that no one can blunt. They massacre the young, wantonly kick and kill even babies. And Babylon, most glorious of all kingdoms, the pride and joy of Chaldeans, will end up smoking and stinking like Sodom. And yes, like Gomorrah, when God had finished with them. No one will live there anymore, generation after generation, a ghost town. Not even Bedouins will pitch tents there. Shepherds will give it a wide berth. But strange and wild animals will like it just fine, filling the vacant houses with eerie night sounds. Skunks will make it their home, and unspeakable night hags will haunt it. Hyenas will curdle your blood with their laughing, and the howling of coyotes will give you the shivers. Babylon is doomed. It won't be long now. Chapter 14. Now you are nothing. But not so with Jacob. God will have compassion on Jacob. Once again, he'll choose Israel. He'll establish them in their own country. Outsiders will be attracted and throw their lot in with Jacob. The nations among whom they lived will actually escort them back home. And then Israel will pay them back by making slaves of them, men and women alike, possessing them as slaves in God's country, capturing those who had captured them, ruling over those who had abused them. When God has given you time to recover from the abuse and trouble and harsh servitude that you had to endure, you can amuse yourselves by taking up this satire, a taunt against the king of Babylon. Can you believe it? The tyrant is gone. The tyranny is over. God has broken the rule of the wicked, the power of the bully rulers that crushed many people, a relentless reign of cruel outrage, established a violent rule of anger, rife with torture and persecution. And now it's over. The whole earth quietly at rest. Burst into song. Make the rafters ring. Ponderosa pine trees are happy. Giant Lebanon cedars are relieved, saying, since you've been cut down, there's no one around to cut us down. And the underworld dead are all excited, preparing to welcome you when you come. Getting ready to greet you are the ghostly dead, all the famous names of earth. All the buried kings of the nations will stand up on their thrones with well-prepared speeches, royal invitations to death. Now you are nothing as we are. Make yourselves at home with us dead folks. This is where your pomp and fine music led you, Babylon, to your underworld private chambers, a king-size mattress of maggots for repose and a quilt of crawling worms for warmth. What a come down this, O Babylon, day star, son of dawn, flat on your face in the underworld mud, you, famous for flattening nations. You said to yourself, I'll climb to heaven, I'll set my throne over the stars of God. I'll run the assembly of angels that meets on sacred Mount Zaphon. I'll climb to the top of the clouds, I'll take over as king of the universe. You didn't make it, did you? Instead of climbing up, you came down. Down with the underground dead, down to the abyss of the pit. People will stare and muse. Can this be the one who terrorized Earth and its kingdoms, turned Earth to a moonscape, wasted its cities, shut up his prisoners to a living death? Other kings get a decent burial, honored with eulogies, and placed in a tomb. But you're dumped in a ditch, unburied, like a stray dog or cat, covered with rotting bodies, murdered and indigent corpses. Your dead body desecrated, mutilated, no state funeral for you. You've left your land in ruins, left a legacy of massacre. The progeny of your evil life will never be named. Oblivion. Get a place ready to slaughter the sons of the wicked and wipe out their father's line. Unthinkable that they should own a square foot of land or desecrate the face of the world with their cities. I will confront them, decree of God of the angel armies, and strip Babylon of name and survivors, children and grandchildren. God's decree. I'll make it a worthless swamp and give it as a prize to the hedgehog, and then I'll bulldoze it out of existence. Decree of God of the angel armies. Who could ever cancel such plans? God of the angel armies speaks. Exactly as I planned, it will happen. Following my blueprints, it will take shape. I will shatter the Assyrian who trespasses my land and stomp him into the dirt on my mountains. I will ban his taking and making of slaves and lift the weight of oppression from all shoulders. This is the plan, planned for the whole earth, and this is the hand that will do it, reaching into every nation. God of the angel armies has planned it. Who could ever cancel such plans? His is the hand that's reached out. Who could brush it aside? In the year King Ahaz died, this message came. Hold it, Philistines. It's too soon to celebrate the defeat of your cruel oppressor. From the death throes of that snake, a worse snake will come. And from that one even worse. The poor won't have to worry. The needy will escape the terror. But you Philistines will be plunged into famine. And those who don't starve, God will kill. Wail and howl, proud city. Fall prostrate in fear, Philistia. On the northern horizon, smoke from burned cities, the wake of a brutal, disciplined destroyer. What does one say to outsiders who ask questions? Tell them, God has established Zion. Those in need and in trouble find refuge in her. Chapter 15. Poignant cries reverberate through Moab. A message concerning Moab. Village Ar of Moab is in ruins, destroyed in a night raid. Village Kir of Moab is in ruins, destroyed in a night raid. Village Dibon climbs to its chapel in the hills, goes up to lament. Moab weeps and wails over Nebo and Medba. Every head is shaved bald, every beard shaved clean. They pour into the streets wearing black, go up on the roofs, take to the town square. Everyone in tears, everyone in grief. Towns Heshbon and Elilah cry long and loud. The sound carries as far as Jahaz. Moab sobs, shaking in grief. The soul of Moab trembles. Oh, how I grieve for Moab. Refugees stream to Zoar, and then onto Eglath Shelishiah. Up the slopes of Luhith they weep. On the road to Horonaim they cry their loss. The springs of Nimrim are dried up, grass brown, buds stunted, nothing grows. They leave, carrying all their possessions on their backs, everything they own, making their way as best they can across Willow Creek to safety. Poignant cries reverberate all through Moab, gut-wrenching sobs as far as Eglam, heart-racking sobs all the way to Beer Elam. The banks of the Dibon crest with blood, but God has worse in store for Dibon. A lion to finish off the fugitives, to clean up whoever's left in the land. Chapter 16. A new government in the David tradition. Dispatch a gift of lambs, says Moab, to the leaders in Jerusalem. Lambs from Selah sent across the desert to buy the goodwill of Jerusalem. The towns and people of Moab are at a loss. New hatched birds knocked from the nest, fluttering helplessly. At the banks of the Arnon River, unable to cross. Tell us what to do. Help us out. Protect us. Hide us. Give the refugees from Moab sanctuary with you. Be a safe place for those on the run from the killing fields. When this is all over, Judah answers, the tyrant toppled. The killing at an end, all signs of these cruelties long gone. A new government of love will be established in the venerable David tradition. A ruler you can depend on will head this government. A ruler passionate for justice. A ruler quick to set things right. We've heard, everyone's heard, of Moab's pride. World famous for pride. Arrogant, self-important, insufferable, full of hot air. So now let Moab lament for a change, with antiphonal mock laments from the neighbors. What a shame, how terrible. No more fine fruitcakes and Kir Hareseth candles. All those lush Heshbon fields dried up, the rich Sibmah vineyards withered. Foreign thugs have crushed and torn out the famous grapevines that once reached all the way to Jazer, right to the edge of the desert, ripped out the crops in every direction as far as the eye can see. I'll join the weeping. I'll weep right along with Jazer. Weep for the Sibmah vineyards. And yes, Heshbon and Elilah, I'll mingle my tears with your tears. The joyful shouting at harvest is gone. Instead of song and celebration, Dead silence. No more boisterous laughter in the orchards. No more hearty work songs in the vineyards. Instead of the bustle and sound of good work in the fields, silence. Deathly and deadening silence. My heartstrings throb like harp strings for Moab. My soul in sympathy for sad Kir Heres. When Moab trudges to the shrine to pray, he wastes both time and energy. Going to the sanctuary and praying for relief is useless. Nothing ever happens. This is God's earlier message on Moab. God's updated message is, in 3 years, no longer than the term of an enlisted soldier, Moab's impressive presence will be gone. That splendid hot air balloon will be punctured. And instead of a vigorous population, just a few shuffling bums, cadging handouts. Chapter 17. Damascus, a pile of dust and rubble. A message concerning Damascus. Watch this. Damascus, undone as a city, a pile of dust and rubble. Her towns emptied of people. The sheep and goats will move in and take over the towns as if they owned them, which they will. Not a sign of a fort is left in Ephraim, not a trace of government left in Damascus. What's left of Aram? The same as what's left of Israel. Not much. Decree of God of the angel armies. The day is coming. The day is coming when Jacob's robust splendor goes pale and his well-fed body turns skinny. The country will be left empty, picked clean as a field harvested by field hands. She'll be like a few stalks of barley left standing in the lush valley of Rephaim after harvest, or like the couple of ripe olives overlooked in the top of the olive tree, or the 4 or 5 apples that the pickers couldn't reach in the orchard. Decree of the God of Israel. Yes, the day is coming when people will notice the one who made them. Take a look of Israel. They'll lose interest in all the stuff they've made, altars and monuments and rituals, their homemade, handmade religion, however impressive it is. And yes, the day is coming when their fortress cities will be abandoned, the very same cities that the Hivites and Amorites abandoned when Israel invaded. And the country will be empty, desolate. You have forgotten God. And why? Because you have forgotten God, your salvation, not remembered your rock of refuge. And so, even though you are very religious, planting all sorts of bushes and herbs and trees to honor and influence your fertility gods, and even though you make them grow so well, bursting with buds and sprouts and blossoms, nothing will come of them. Instead of a harvest, you'll get nothing but grief and pain. Pain, pain. Oh my. Thunder. A thundering herd of people. Thunder like the crashing of ocean waves. Nations roaring, roaring like the roar of a massive waterfall. Roaring like a deafening Niagara. But God will silence them with a word. And then he'll blow them away like dead leaves off a tree. Like down from a thistle. At bedtime, terror fills the air. By morning, it's gone. Not a sign of it anywhere. This is what happens to those who would ruin us. This is the fate of those out to get us. Chapter 18. People mighty and merciless. Doomed to the land of flies and mosquitoes, beyond the Ethiopian rivers, shipping emissaries all over the world, down rivers and across seas. Go, swift messengers, go to this people tall and handsome, this people held in respect everywhere, this people mighty and merciless, from the land crisscrossed with rivers. Everybody everywhere, all earth dwellers. When you see a flag flying on a mountain, look. When you hear the trumpet blown, listen. For here's what God told me. I'm not going to say anything, but simply look on from where I live. Quiet as warmth that comes from the sun, silent as dew during harvest. And then, just before harvest, after the blossom is turned into a maturing grape, he'll step in and prune back the new shoots, ruthlessly hack off all the growing branches. He'll leave them piled on the ground for birds and animals to feed on, fodder for the summering birds, fodder for the wintering animals. Then, tribute will be brought to the God of the angel armies, brought from this people tall and handsome, this people once held in respect everywhere, this people once mighty and merciless. From the land crisscrossed with rivers to Mount Zion, God's place. Chapter 19. Anarchy and chaos and killing. A message concerning Egypt. Watch this. God riding on a fast-moving cloud, moving in on Egypt. The god idols of Egypt shudder and shake, Egyptians paralyzed by panic. God says, I'll make Egyptian fight Egyptian, brother fight brother, neighbor fight neighbor, city fight city, kingdom fight kingdom, anarchy and chaos and killing. I'll knock the wind out of the Egyptians. They won't know coming from going. They'll go to their god idols for answers. They'll conjure ghosts and hold seances, desperate for answers. But I'll turn the Egyptians over to a tyrant most cruel. I'll put them under the rule of a mean, merciless king. Decree of the master, God of the angel armies. The river Nile will dry up, the riverbed baked dry in the sun. The canals will become stagnant and stink. Every stream touching the Nile dry up. River vegetation will rot away, the banks of the Nile baked clay, the riverbed hard and smooth. River grasses dried up and gone with the wind. Fishermen will complain that the fishing's been ruined. Textile workers will be out of work. All weavers and workers in linen and cotton and wool. Dispirited, depressed in their forced idleness. Everyone who works for a living, jobless. The princes of Zoan are fools. The advisors of Pharaoh, stupid. How could any of you dare tell Pharaoh, trust me, I'm wise. I know what's going on. Why, I'm descended from the old wisdom of Egypt. There's not a wise man or woman left in the country. If there were, one of them would tell you what God of the angel armies has in mind for Egypt. As it is, the princes of Zoan are all fools, and the princes of Memphis, dunces. The honored pillars of your society have led Egypt into detours and dead ends. God has scrambled their brains. Egypt's become a falling down in his own vomit drunk. Egypt's hopeless, past helping. A senile, doddering old fool. On that day, Egyptians will be like hysterical schoolgirls, screaming at the first hint of action from God of the angel armies. Little Judah will strike terror in Egyptians. Say Judah to an Egyptian and see panic. The word triggers fear of the God of the angel army's plan against Egypt. On that day, more than one city in Egypt will learn to speak the language of faith and promise to follow God of the angel armies. One of these cities will be honored with the title, City of the Sun. On that day, there will be a place of worship to God in the center of Egypt and a monument to God at its border. It will show how the God of the angel armies has helped the Egyptians. When they cry out in prayer to God because of oppressors, he'll send them help, a savior who will keep them safe and take care of them. God will openly show himself to the Egyptians, and they'll get to know him on that day. They'll worship him seriously with sacrifices and burnt offerings. They'll make vows and keep them. God will wound Egypt, first hit and then heal. Egypt will come back to God, and God will listen to their prayers and heal them from head to toe. On that day, there will be a highway all the way from Egypt to Assyria. Assyrians will have free range in Egypt, and Egyptians in Assyria. No longer rivals, they'll worship together, Egyptians and Assyrians. On that day, Israel will take its place alongside Egypt and Assyria, sharing the blessing from the center. God of the angel armies, who blessed Israel, will generously bless them all. Blessed be Egypt, my people. Blessed be Assyria, work of my hands. Blessed be Israel, my heritage. Chapter 20. Exposed to mockery and jeers. In the year the field commander, sent by King Sargon of Assyria, came to Ashdod and fought and took it, God told Isaiah, son of Amoz, go, take off your clothes and sandals. And Isaiah did it, going about naked and barefooted. Then God said, just as my servant Isaiah has walked around town naked and barefooted for 3 years as a warning sign to Egypt and Ethiopia, so the king of Assyria is going to come and take the Egyptians as captives and the Ethiopians as exiles. He'll take young and old alike and march them out there naked and barefooted, exposed to mockery and jeers, the bared buttocks of Egypt on parade. Everyone who has put hope in Ethiopia and expected help from Egypt will be thrown into confusion. Everyone who lives along this coast will say, "Look at them, naked and barefooted, shuffling off to exile. And we thought they were our best hope, that they'd rescue us from the king of Assyria. Now what's going to happen to us? How are we going to get out of this?" Chapter 21. The Betrayer Betrayed. A message concerning the desert at the sea. As tempests drive through the Negev desert, coming out of the desert, that terror-filled place, a hard vision is given me. The betrayer betrayed, the plunderer plundered. Attack, Elam. Lay siege, Media. Persians, attack. Attack, Babylon. I'll put an end to all the moaning and groaning. Because of this news, I'm doubled up in pain, writhing in pain like a woman having a baby. Baffled by what I hear, undone by what I see. Absolutely stunned, horror-stricken. I had hoped for a relaxed evening, but it has turned into a nightmare. The banquet is spread, the guests reclining in luxurious ease, eating and drinking, having a good time, and then, "To arms, princes, the fight is on." The master told me, "Go, post a lookout. Have him report whatever he spots. When he sees horses and wagons in battle formation, lines of donkeys and columns of camels, tell him to keep his ear to the ground. Note every whisper, every rumor." Just then, the lookout shouted, "I'm at my post, master, sticking to my post day after day and all through the night. I watched them come, the horses and wagons in battle formation. I heard them call out the war news in headlines. Babylon fallen, fallen, and all its precious god idols smashed to pieces on the ground. Dear Israel, you've been through a lot. You've been put through the mill. The good news I get from God of the angel armies, the God of Israel, I now pass on to you. A message concerning Edom. A voice calls to me from the Seir Mountains in Edom. Night watchman, how long till daybreak? How long will this night last? The night watchman calls back. Morning's coming, but for now, it's still night. If you ask me again, I'll give the same answer. A message concerning Arabia. You'll have to camp out in the desert badlands, you caravans of Dedanites. Haul water to the thirsty, greet fugitives with bread. Show your desert hospitality, you who live in Tema, the desert swarming with refugees escaping the horrors of war. The master told me, hang on, within 1 year, I'll sign a contract on it. The arrogant brutality of Kedar, those hooligans of the desert, will be over. Nothing much left of the Kedar toughs. The God of Israel says so. Isaiah, chapter 22, A Country of Cowards. A message concerning the Valley of Vision. What's going on here anyway? All this partying and noise-making, shouting and cheering in the streets, the city noisy with celebrations. You have no brave soldiers to honor, no combat heroes to be proud of. Your leaders were all cowards, captured without even lifting a sword. A country of cowards captured escaping the battle. You looked, but you never looked to him. In the midst of the shouting, I said, let me alone. Let me grieve by myself. Don't tell me it's going to be all right. These people are doomed. It's not all right. For the Master, God of the angel armies, is bringing a day noisy with mobs of people, jostling and stampeding in the Valley of Vision, knocking down walls and hollering to the mountains, attack, attack! Old enemies Elam and Kir arrive armed to the teeth, weapons and chariots and cavalry. Your fine valleys are noisy with war, chariots and cavalry charging this way and that. God has left Judah exposed and defenseless. You assessed your defenses that day, inspected your arsenal of weapons in the forest armory. You found the weak places in the city walls that needed repair. You secured the water supply at the lower pool. You took an inventory of the houses in Jerusalem and tore down some to get bricks to fortify the city wall. You built a large cistern to ensure plenty of water. You looked and looked and looked, but you never looked to him who gave you this city, never once consulted the one who has long had plans for this city. The Master, God of the angel armies, called out on that day, called for a day of repentant tears, called you to dress in somber clothes of mourning. But what do? You throw a party, eating and drinking and dancing in the streets. You barbecue bulls and sheep and throw a huge feast, slabs of meat, kegs of beer. Seize the day, eat and drink, tomorrow we die. God of the angel armies whispered to me his verdict on this frivolity. You'll pay for this outrage until the day you die. The Master, God of the angel armies, says so. The key of the Davidic heritage. The Master, God of the angel armies, spoke. Come, go to this steward, Shebna, who is in charge of all the king's affairs, and tell him, what's going on here? You're an outsider here, and yet you act like you own the place. Make a big, fancy tomb for yourself where everyone can see it, making sure everyone will think you are important. God is about to sack you, to throw you to the dogs. He'll grab you by the hair, swing you round and round dizzyingly, and then let you go, sailing through the air like a ball until you're out of sight. Where you'll land, nobody knows. And there you'll die, and all the stuff you've collected heaped on your grave. You've disgraced your master's house. You're fired, and good riddance. On that day, I'll replace Shebna. I will call my servant Eliakim, son of Hilkiah. I'll dress him in your robe. I'll put your belt on him. I'll give him your authority. He'll be a father leader to Jerusalem and the government of Judah. I'll give him the key of the Davidic heritage. He'll have the run of the place. Open any door and keep it open. Lock any door and keep it locked. I'll pound him like a nail into a solid wall. He'll secure the Davidic tradition. Everything will hang on him, not only the fate of Davidic descendants, but also the detailed daily operations of the house, including cups and cutlery. And then the day will come, says God of the angel armies, when that nail will come loose and fall out, break loose from that solid wall, and everything hanging on it will go with it. That's what will happen. God says so. Chapter 23. It was all numbers, dead numbers, profit and loss. Wail, ships of Tarshish, your strong seaports all in ruins. When the ships returned from Cyprus, they saw the destruction. Hold your tongue, you who live on the seacoast, merchants of Sidon. Your people sailed the deep seas, buying and selling, making money on wheat from Shihor, grown along the Nile, multinational brokering grains. Hang your head in shame, Sidon. The sea speaks up. The powerhouse of the ocean says, I've never had labor pains, never had a baby, never reared children to adulthood, never gave life, never worked with life. It was all numbers, dead numbers, profit and loss. When Egypt gets the report on Tyre, what wailing, what wringing of hands. Nothing left here to be proud of. Visit Tarshish, you who live on the seacoast. Take a good, long look and wail. Yes, cry buckets of tears. Is this the city you remember as energetic and alive, bustling with activity? This historic old city, expanding throughout the globe, buying and selling all over the world? And who is behind the collapse of Tyre? The Tyre that controlled the world markets. Tyre's merchants were the business tycoons. Tyre's traders called all the shots. God of the angel armies ordered the crash to show the sordid backside of pride and puncture the inflated reputations. Sail for home, O ships of Tarshish. There are no docks left in this harbor. God reached out to the sea and sea traders, threw the sea kingdoms into turmoil. God ordered the destruction of the seacoast cities, the centers of commerce. God said, there's nothing left here to be proud of, bankrupt and bereft Sidon. Do you want to make a new start in Cyprus? Don't count on it. Nothing there will work out for you either. Look at what happened to Babylon. There's nothing left of it. Assyria turned it into a desert, into a refuge for wild dogs and stray cats. They brought in their big siege engines, tore down the buildings, and left nothing behind but rubble. Wail, ships of Tarshish, your strong seaports all in ruins. For the next 70 years, a king's lifetime, Tyre will be forgotten. At the end of the 70 years, Tyre will stage a comeback, but it will be the comeback of a worn-out whore. As in the song, take a harp, circle the city, unremembered whore. Sing your old songs, your many old songs. Maybe someone will remember. At the end of the 70 years, God will look in on Tyre. She'll go back to her old whoring trade, selling herself to the highest bidder, doing anything with anyone, promiscuous with all the kingdoms of earth, for a fee. But everything she gets, all the money she takes in, will be turned over to God. It will not be put in banks. Her profits will be put to the use of God-aware, God-serving people, providing plenty of food and the best of clothing. Chapter 24. The landscape will be a moonscape. Danger ahead. God's about to ravish the earth and leave it in ruins, rip everything out by the roots, and send everyone scurrying. Priests and lay people alike, owners and workers alike, celebrities and nobodies alike, buyers and sellers alike, bankers and beggars alike, the haves and have-nots alike. The landscape will be a moonscape, totally wasted. And why? Because God says so. He's issued the orders. The earth turns gaunt and gray, the world silent and sad, sky and land lifeless, colorless. Earth polluted by its very own people. Earth is polluted by its very own people who have broken its laws, disrupted its order, violated the sacred and eternal covenant. Therefore, a curse, like a cancer, ravages the earth. Its people pay the price of their sacrilege. They dwindle away, dying out one by one. No more wine, no more vineyards, no more songs or singers. The laughter of castanets is gone, the shouts of celebrants gone, the laughter of fiddles gone. No more parties with toasts of champagne. Serious drinkers gag on their drinks. The chaotic cities are unlivable. Anarchy reigns. Every house is boarded up, condemned. People riot in the streets for wine, but the good times are gone forever. No more joy for this old world. The city is dead and deserted, bulldozed into piles of rubble. That's the way it will be on this earth. This is the fate of all nations. An olive tree shaken clean of its olives, a grapevine picked clean of its grapes. But there are some who will break into glad song. Out of the west, they'll shout of God's majesty. Yes, from the east, God's glory will ascend. Every island of the sea will broadcast God's fame, the fame of the God of Israel. From the four winds and the seven seas, we hear the singing. All praise to the righteous one. But I said, that's all well and good for somebody, but all I can see is doom, doom and more doom. All of them at one another's throats. Yes, all of them at one another's throats. Terror and pits and booby traps are everywhere, whoever you are. If you run from the terror, you'll fall into the pit. If you climb out of the pit, you'll get caught in the trap. Chaos pours out of the skies. The foundations of earth are crumbling. Earth is smashed to pieces. Earth is ripped to shreds. Earth is wobbling out of control. Earth staggers like a drunk, sways like a shack in a high wind. Its piled up sins are too much for it. It collapses and won't get up again. That's when God will call on the carpet, rebel powers in the skies, and rebel kings on earth. They'll be rounded up like prisoners in a jail, corralled and locked up in a jail, and then sentenced and put to hard labor. Shamefaced moon will cower, humiliated. Red-faced sun will skulk, disgraced. Because God of the angel armies will take over, ruling from Mount Zion and Jerusalem, splendid and glorious before